At the heart of a massive automobile company stood a brand new prototype engine. Complex, powerful, and unfortunately, completely broken. The company's top engineers had spent weeks trying to figure out what was wrong with it, but no one could get it running. Tension filled the room as the CEO, Mr. Roy, grew more frustrated by the minute. With every failed attempt, his patience wore thinner. That day, among the quiet hustle of janitors cleaning the high-tech facility, was a young girl named Alina. She was the janitor's daughter, only 17 years old, and had accompanied her father to work during her school holidays. She stayed quietly in the background, watching everything with curious eyes. When yet another senior engineer failed to fix the engine, Mr. Roy let out a loud sigh and sarcastically said, "What's next? Should we let the janitor's daughter try?" The entire room laughed, except Alina. She stepped forward slowly and, with a steady voice, asked, "May I try?" The laughter stopped. Silence filled the air. Mr. Roy raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead," he said, still thinking it was a joke. "Let's see what magic you can do." Alina walked up to the engine, picked up a small toolkit nearby, and began her work. She didn't fumble or hesitate. She examined the circuit board, traced the wiring, and checked the compression valves. Her fingers moved with surprising precision for someone her age. Engineers watched in disbelief, wondering what she was even trying to do. What they didn't know was that Alina had a secret. Every night after her homework, she studied her father's old engineering books. She had a natural love for machines and was always fascinated by how engines worked. Whenever she visited the workshop with her dad, she observed everything quietly, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. 30 minutes passed. Without saying a word, she reconnected a few wires, tightened a small screw, adjusted the timing belt slightly, and then walked over to the ignition switch. She paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and pressed the button. The engine coughed, then roared to life. Everyone gasped. Engineers stood frozen. The same engine that a room full of professionals had failed to start was now running smoothly, fixed by a teenage girl who wasn't even supposed to be in the room. Mr. Roy stared in complete disbelief. For the first time in his career, he was speechless. This wasn't just impressive, it was revolutionary. And Alina. She simply stepped back, wiped the grease off her hands, and looked over at her father, who stood silently in the corner, his eyes wide with pride and shock. In that moment, no one laughed. Instead, they stared at a girl who had just changed everything. Everyone in the room was still processing what had just happened. A 17-year-old girl had fixed the most complicated engine in the company's history. The CEO, Mr. Roy, slowly walked over to her and asked, "How did you do that?" Alina, calm and collected, looked up at him and replied, "I studied. I watched your engineers work, read my father's old textbooks, and practiced on scrap engines whenever I could. I've been coming here for years, quietly learning everything I could." Her answer left the CEO stunned. Around him stood some of the most qualified professionals in the industry, and yet, it was a janitor's daughter who had solved the problem they couldn't. For a moment, no one knew what to say. Then one of the senior engineers began to clap. Another followed, and soon the entire room was applauding. Mr. Roy, still recovering from the shock, did something unexpected. He offered Alina a summer internship on the spot. "We clearly need minds like yours on our team," he said. Alina looked over at her father. He nodded slowly, tears forming in his eyes. He had spent years cleaning those same floors, never imagining that his daughter would one day be at the center of the company's attention, not as a janitor's daughter, but as a genius in her own right. Within weeks, Alina became the talk of the company. News of the incident spread beyond the walls of the factory. Local newspapers picked up the story. Teen girl fixes unfixable engine, followed by national media attention. Alina was invited to speak at tech events, awarded a scholarship by a top engineering university, and celebrated as a rising star in STEM. But Alina didn't let the fame distract her. She worked harder than ever. She joined the company as a full-time engineer after finishing her degree, leading a research team by the age of 22. The same engineers who had once laughed at her now asked for her advice. Her journey inspired hundreds of young girls from underprivileged backgrounds who had dreams but lacked support. She visited schools, started a mentorship program, and funded engineering workshops in rural communities. One day, during a company-wide meeting, Mr. Roy stood up and said, "Years ago, I made a joke that changed this company forever. I asked a janitor's daughter to fix something no one else could. That day, we didn't just fix an engine. We discovered a leader." The crowd gave her a standing ovation. Her father, now retired, watched proudly from the front row, knowing that his daughter had not only rewritten her own story, but had changed the future for so many others. And Alina. She remained humble, always remembering where she came from, because she knew that real strength isn't in what you're given, it's in what you do with what no one expected you to have.